Hello and welcome. My name is Angie Holden and I'm the blogger behind the Country Chic Cottage. Today we are going to make custom weeding hooks, custom spatulas, and custom scrapers, all with sublimation printing. So these are sublimation blanks and I personally absolutely love them. So whether you want to do a full wrap design like these two, or you just want to put your logo on some weeding tools, I have the tutorial for you. So these are sublimation blanks and I'm going to link to them in the description below this video. There are weeding hooks, there are spatulas, and then there are two types of scrapers. I'm going to do the small one in this video, but there's also a large version. And they come plain white, and you can add whatever design you would like to them. So let's take a look at the supplies we're going to use. The supplies you're going to need are as follows: heat-resistant gloves, a lint roller, heat-resistant mat, sublimation prints. Now this is sublimation ink printed on sublimation paper from a sublimation printer, and I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to do this. Heat-resistant tape, a heat gun for the shrink wrap, and then you'll need your sublimation blanks and shrink wrap. Now these do come in bundles, and let's take a closer look at that. So when you purchase these sublimation blanks, the shrink wrap actually comes with them. So there are small scrapers, there are also large scrapers. Those were on back order as of the filming of this video, but I actually like the small one a little bit better for most of my projects, so that's fine. So small scrapers and the shrink wrap to go with them. And then there are weeding hooks. Again, it comes bundled with the shrink wrap. And then spatulas, once again, bundled with the shrink wrap. So for instance, with these spatulas, the spatulas and the shrink wrap will come in a box together. So when you order these, the shrink wrap comes with them. So you don't have to look for shrink wrap that specifically fits these. Now, we are using shrink wrap. We are going to use a sublimation oven. These will have to be completed in an oven because they are not flat. You cannot do them in a heat press. So you will need some type of oven to do them with. So for each of these, you'll want to remove any packaging. They come in like plastic bags, and then the weeding hook has a little protective cap on it. Remove that for the sublimation oven. Then for each of these, there are going to be two ways to do this. You can add a small, in this case I'm going to add my logo, or you can do a full wrap design. Now I'm going to show you some tips and tricks for the full wraps, because especially with the scrapers, there are areas that don't do as well, and you just need to be aware of that when you are creating these. So first let's talk about the weeding tools and the spatulas, because those would be done similarly. For each of these, you would want to clean it really well, get off any dirt or debris. Then if, say in this case, I'm just going to use my logo, this is a mirrored print printed off a sublimation printer, I could just locate that onto the handle of this sublimation weeding tool. Now remember, this is made out of a special material or coated with a special material to accept the sublimation ink. Then once that's located, you would just add heat resistant tape to hold it into place. Now I'm going to add one of these logos on both sides. You can do this or just add it to one side, it does not matter. I like it to be on both sides, so I'm going to go ahead and add it approximately the same location and just wrap my tape all the way around, and then just repeat in a few more areas so this is taped down really, really well on both sides. Then this one is ready for the shrink wrap. For the full wrap version, again, we'll clean everything well. Then I just printed like a whole sheet of sublimation print, and then I'm just going to add this to it. Now this entire thing you can sublimate, so all of the white part. Now you won't be able to get inside of this hole, but I have found that that really is okay and it does not matter. One thing I have found is that to get the seam as good as possible, I like to, first of all, trim off as much excess as possible, but not getting it too tightly, so I will have an overlap. And then on the back of one side, I'm going to add a long strip of heat-resistant tape. So we'll just place the tape on the back of one side, then just trim away any excess sublimation print or excess tape. If the tape is hanging over, you just want this to be as straight as possible. Then you'll take your weeding hook, and the first thing you want to do is put the side that has the tape on the bottom. And you want to decide where you want your seam to be. I kind of like the seam on the side or towards one side if possible. Totally up to you. And then wrap this other side over the top. And then right here in the middle, I'm going to pull it as tight as I can possibly get it and add a piece of tape. Then we can kind of adjust the weeding hook inside, and I'm gonna push it close to the bottom here. So it's close to the bottom, but enough where I can wrap over that bottom edge. And now I'm just going to keep adding pieces of heat-resistant tape all along this seam. So I'm pulling it as tight as I possibly can all the way down. And then I am going to need to trim this to size. So I'm going to feel along in here. So there's enough at the bottom, and I'm going to feel along in here to find that top portion. I'm just going to make a small slit at first. Then I can just go all the way around, trimming that. So we get rid of all of this excess, but I have enough at the top to cover up that top portion, enough at the bottom to cover the bottom. And now you need to do just that. So we're gonna cover the bottom first. So we'll just wanna fold the sublimation print over the bottom, and you may have to push it from this side to hold it tight. And then we're gonna tape that bottom down. And you may need a piece of tape all the way around as well, just to hold that tight. And then we want to push this as tight as we can into that bottom piece. You should still have enough at the top to cover the whole tool. And what you want to do is feel here. Towards the top of these, they taper down. So we want to feel where that taper starts. We want to tape all the way up until you get to that taper. So now I'm at the taper, and what I'm going to do is take my scissors and just cut down several different places. And now I can work this to where it is touching that tapered surface all along all of the sides. And then once you have that, everything's touching that tapered surface, I'm going to use a piece of tape and start at one side. I'm going to pull as tightly as possible. Then I'm going to go to the other side, and I'm going to do something similar. So your objective is to get this as tight as possible on the taper. Now, the shrink wrap will help, but I find that the better I tape this now, the better the results I get. So there's my sublimation weeding hook, completely taped up all the way. That's all for the weeding hook, and the spatula is the same process. So you just do the handle in the same way as the weeding hook. The scraper is a bit different. So first of all, let's do the logo scraper. I'm gonna use a lint roller to clean that off. This is easiest on these flat portions. So for instance, for the logo, for this side, I would put it above this area. So I would put it up here and just tape down. And again, for these, I would tape down really tightly because everything is tapered. So be sure to tape down everything really tight. And on this side, I would put it up towards the top. This bottom portion is a little more tapered than the top area. And again, just tape down really well. And now this one is ready for shrink wrap. Now when you want to do one of these scrapers with a full wrap design, let me just show you what happens. On this side with the severe taper here at the bottom, it gets very light or white at the bottom if you attempt to do a full wrap. What I would suggest is just stopping where this curve is. Now the other side does much better. It is slightly faded right at the bottom edge. You can say that's okay and just go with it, or you could end it somewhere up in here if you wanted to make sure you had a really good sublimation print. I just wanted to caution you on that before you get started sublimating these. So what I would do on this side is to take some heat resistant tape and just run it right along that edge where that severe taper starts. This is going to prevent any sublimation print from sublimating in that area. And what I can do is just sort of cut off any excess and make sure it's just right along that edge. And then we can just sort of trim it around the edge here. And then cover this entire bottom as well. So at this point, this entire bottom area is covered with heat resistant tape. I'm gonna go ahead and sublimate this entire side. Then I have a sublimation print. So sublimation ink printed on sublimation paper from a sublimation printer. And I'm gonna go ahead and add this. And I'm gonna add it where the fold is gonna be here at this area. Leave plenty of room at the top and the sides and just fold this over and get a really good crease right where that's down in the fold. Then we're gonna cut off this excess print. So we're gonna trim that off. And then all we need on the sides is enough excess to cover the side itself. So we can probably trim a little bit off the sides. Just don't get too close. That looks like it'll work fine. And we can trim the top here in a minute. So what we're gonna do is on the sides, the first side we're gonna put it where it just is going to cover the side. And I'm gonna put a piece of tape up at the side that's thicker than all of the rest of the area. So I'm gonna pull this tight, overlap it slightly, and now it's trapped inside. Now I'm gonna push it from this side where it's all the way down, and I can probably trim just a little bit more. You don't want too much overlap because that will show. So I'm gonna trim just a little bit more off of this. And I trim a little at a time so I don't trim too much. The last thing I wanna do is to get this too close and have to start over. So that looks perfect, just a slight overlap. And you want it as tight as possible. So it should be very, very tight inside of this sublimation print. And we're gonna tape it directly across. So I have 2 pieces of tape holding that inside. And now on both sides, we wanna work our way to the folded edge. So we are going to keep overlapping it, adding heat resistant tape, and getting it as tight as possible to the scraper itself. So now I have both sides all the way to the folded edge. And now we'll start working our way up and around this top. Now's the time to see if you can trim any off that top. Again, we want it to cover and slightly overlap. So I can trim just a little bit. Again, I trim several times just so I don't trim too much, and that looks good. Now the corners are gonna be what is sort of awkward, so I go ahead and trim those a little bit as well. That way I don't have too much sublimation print in those areas. Just gonna fold it under, overlap over the top, tape down tight. And then just repeat that all the way around. So all the way around this top edge, we're gonna fold it very, very tightly and tape down. And you'll notice I'm using a ton of tape to get this as tight as possible and everything folded down well. Then once I'm done all the way around that top edge, this one is also ready for shrink wrap. Each of these is going to be added to the shrink wrap in the same way. So you add it to the shrink wrap. For the spatula and the weeding hook, when you add it to the shrink wrap, it should basically fit in there. You might have some of the tip hanging out, so the weeding tip or the spatula tip, and that's okay. Then you'll just use a heat gun to shrink them up. You want to shrink them to where there are very few wrinkles. Don't hold your heat gun in one place too long, as that will make holes. You can see just how tight these turn out, and they will get tighter when you put them in your sublimation oven. Go ahead and add to your sublimation oven. I'm heating these at 355 degrees Fahrenheit for 11 minutes. Just add them to your oven, allow it to run for the full time, then remove them. Once you remove them, I like to remove the shrink wrap hot so that I can remove it a bit easier. So remove all of the shrink wrap and the sublimation print to reveal your custom sublimation weeding tools. Now let's take a look at some results. So I will say that first of all, the shrink wrap is the hardest to get off the spatula. So if you can cut it where it doesn't get on this blade very much, it'll be easier on you. The full wrap ones on these turned out amazing. I love the full wrap weeding tools. The seam on this one runs right through here, so you can see that the seams look really great as well. And here's another pattern, and I will have both of these patterns for free in the description below this video. Now, these scrapers turned out great on this side. I did show you this side where I tried to do a full wrap. This is the one where I put heat resistant tape here. It did bleed a little bit around the edge. So it's not perfect, but I do like this version where I masked the bottom a little bit better than this version where it just looks like ghosted and it looks like a mistake here, or maybe it looks a little more intentional on this version. Now, if you're just going to do the logo like these turned out so great. I love my logo on the weeding tools, on the spatula, on the scraper. Everything looks really, really great. So that process is fairly simple, and I hope I helped you get the perfect look. The trickiest one is really the scraper. I thought the trickiest one would be the weeding tools with all the curved edges, but I was able to get those fairly easily. Trickiest one is definitely that scraper, so you may need a few of these to experiment with, especially if you're gonna do a full wrap design. If you're gonna just do a small design or just your logo, seriously, such an easy project, and perfect for those of you that want some custom weeding tools for your Cricut projects. So whether you want that custom scraper, custom weeding hook, custom spatula, or all three, you can use this video to get those. So if you have any questions about anything I've covered, drop down in the comment section, ask away. If you liked this video and it helped you, give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, head on over to our YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. We have videos just like this one every single week, and trust me, you don't want to miss any of those. So thank you guys so much for joining me, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.